Hello, everybody. Welcome to another show of the Unfiltered Tea Show edition. My brain is in 50 different places all at the same time. Welcome to How I Live Life. Welcome back. We're here. We missed Sunday. Sunday was supposed to be Sunday Fun Day. And like this channel was supposed to be something a little bit different, and now we just talk politics because this administration is um testing testing the boundaries of everything, it seems. So I had put out a thing on my socials asking what I should cover for tonight, and I got a reply that said all. If I tried to do all tonight, we'd be here until 7 a.m. And I'm not sure I have that in me. So then I thought, you know what? It was the first press briefing of the White House at the White House today. New press secretary, new administration, first briefing. So we're going to take a look at that. I have not watched it outside of, I don't know, 2 minutes toward the end or something like that. And that was intermittent sound because I was doing 50 other things. So we're going to get the real time me watching this take on it. It's a little over an hour. I'm going to warn you right now, buckle up, Buttercup, because I'm probably going to have thoughts, which means we will be pausing. I'm going to try and keep it as short-ish. And I would put it on 1.25 speed, but we're not going to start there because reporters have a habit of talking about as fast as I do. So even at 1.25 speed, that can be a little much for some. So I've got the captions on. We're just going to dive right into it. I think we can do a little bit of zoom to start with because I have it pulled up where folks are just filing in. So I think we can do a little zoom to start with. But yeah, we're going to take a look at this. We're going to see what gets said. I am going to go into this with, first I'm going to run our intro here. And then, buffering. Sorry. First, we're going to run our intro. Then we're going to pull this up. And we're going to go into it with an open mind. We're going to go into it assuming that not everyone is like, say, the choice of Pete Hegseth, which makes no sense for the job he's currently supposed to do. But, we're going to go into this with an open mind. She is the youngest press secretary. I'm going to assume, based on what the administration has said, I can say this with a straight face, that this is a merit-based sort of thing. I can't promise I'm not going to get snarky. Cannot promise that. I'm going to try. I'm going to go into it with an open mind. And with that, let's roll the intro. Let us, and let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Unfiltered Tea, a show where we say all the things you wish the newscasters said, unscripted and unfiltered. We talk about news, politics, and entertainment, so pull up your soapbox, pour yourself a cuppa, and let's go. All right, I have my cuppa. It is a hot toddy. I also have my water, but I've got my hot toddy because I feel like whiskey might be required at some point. We'll see. We will see. So let's see where we start.
Please allow people who are assigned to their seats to sit in their seat. If somebody shows up, if you are sitting in someone's seat that is not yours, and they show up,
we don't need to watch this bit. This is everybody getting settled. Let's zoom. Let's zoom to where Okay. Everybody get seated. Everybody get seated. This is a disadvantage to me not doing this ahead of time. Ooh, looks, lots of zoom zoom. Lots of zoom zoom. Oh, this is good. Why is, okay, there we go. Back it up. Back it up. There we go. There she is.
Everybody, how are we? Good to see all of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Ah, no, not what I meant to do. I had a... The golden age of America has most definitely begun. What? I'd like to know how she's defying golden age, because if it's decorating aesthetic, sure. I think I might think of golden age as something very different than what she does.
All of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. The Senate has already confirmed 5 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees: Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem,
That's a problem.
and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. It is imperative that the Senate continues to confirm the remainder of the president's well-qualified nominees as quickly as possible.
That sounded like a threat. That was... First of all, none of them are great picks. Second of all, ma'am? Really?
As you have seen during the past week, President Trump is hard at work fulfilling the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail. Since taking the oath of office, President Trump has taken more than 300 executive actions, secured nearly $1 trillion in U.S. investments, deported illegal alien rapists, gang members, and suspected terrorists from...
Okay, first of all, YouTube is going to have a problem with that. Second of all, I'm going to fact check this, and from every accounting that I've seen, that's not who got deported, and Trump, it wasn't under Trump's administration that they were even rounded up. So, we're off to a rollicking start.
From our homeland and restored common sense to the federal government.
No.
I want to take a moment to go through some of these extraordinary actions. On day 1, President Trump declared a national emergency at our southern border to end the 4-year-long invasion of illegal aliens under the previous administration.
Statistically, again, according to all of the numbers that I've seen, no. That just inaccurate speaking.
Additionally, President Trump signed an executive order to end catch and release and finish construction of his effective border wall. By using every lever of his federal power, President Trump has sent a loud and clear message to the entire world. America will no longer tolerate illegal immigration, and this president expects that every nation on this planet will cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens. As proven by this weekend, when President Trump swiftly directed his team to issue harsh and effective sanctions and tariffs on the Colombian government, upon hearing they were denied a U.S. military aircraft full of their own citizens who were deported by this administration.
Okay, well, okay, let's get into the nuance here. As I understand it, everything was fine, accepting the deportees, fine. Previous administrations have chartered planes or used commercial flights, not sent a military plane, which has a very different vibe. And so the problem was the military plane unannounced. That doesn't it, that there's a lot of very loud subtitles in that, and that was resolved pretty quickly, not because Trump did anything to solve them. Yeah.
Within hours, the Colombian government agreed to all of President Trump's demands, proving
No,
America
not
is once
how.
again respected
No,
on the world
we were
stage.
respected.
So, to foreign nationals who are thinking about trying to illegally enter the United States, think again. Under this president, you will be detained and you will be deported. Every day, Americans are safer because of the violent criminals that President Trump's administration is removing from our communities.
Didn't he just pardon 1,500 people, many of which had violent offenses? I think some of his cabinet has some accusations. He himself is a convicted felon who borrows, the awful man's plane, the one who YouTube really hates the name of. Just
On January 23rd,
okay.
ICE New York arrested a Turkish national for entry without inspection who is a known or suspected terrorist. On January 23rd, ICE San Francisco arrested a citizen of Mexico unlawfully present in the United States who has been convicted of continuous sexual abuse of a child aged 14 years or younger. ICE St. Paul has arrested a citizen of Honduras who was convicted of fourth-degree criminal sexual conduct with a minor. ICE Buffalo arrested a citizen of Ecuador who has been convicted of rape. ICE Boston arrested a citizen of the Dominican Republic who has a criminal conviction for second-degree murder. This criminal was convicted of murder for beating his pregnant wife to death.
Ma'am, can you do the white men currently holding office next, please? Because there are a lot of them with a lot of accusations, and I would like to see them go through the court system.
In front of her 5-year-old son. And ICE St. Paul also arrested a citizen of Mexico who was convicted of possessing pornographic material of a minor on a work computer. Okay. These are the heinous individuals that this administration is removing from American communities every single day, and to the brave state and local law enforcement officers, CBP, and ICE agents who are helping in the facilitation of this deportation operation, President Trump has your back, and he is grateful for your hard work. On the economic front, President Trump took immediate action to lower costs for families who are suffering from 4 long years of the Biden administration's destructive and inflationary policies. President Trump ordered the heads of...
Okay, we have to pause again for a moment because, okay, hang on. I'm coming back to you, ma'am, but we have to talk about just the math of it all. Biden came in to try and do what he called a soft landing, given that the economy was in absolute ruins, basically globally, due to the problem of COVID. The U.S. under Biden came out with the softest landing from all of the numbers that I have seen. I do believe that we are currently misconstruing lining one's own pockets with cryptocurrency in the case of the current administration and actually helping. Sorry, I was just seeing all of the things on Medicare and stuff with that shut down, and then I'm watching this. I did that out of order. So, yeah, back to it. Had to get up on my soapbox for a minute. That's why we're here, right?
Of all executive departments and agencies to help deliver emergency price relief to the American people.
How?
Untangle our economy from Biden's regulatory constraints and end the reckless war on American energy. President Trump also signed sweeping executive orders to end the weaponization of government and restore common sense to the federal bureaucracy. He directed all federal agencies to terminate illegal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
It's not illegal. It's not illegal. It's not illegal. I know. No, no, no.
To help return America to a merit-based society. President Trump also signed an executive order declaring it is now the policy of the federal government that there are only two sexes, male and female.
The science community, from everything I've seen, would like a word about that, because it's not, that's not how the science works. And fun fact, seems the default is female.
Sanity has been restored. Before I take your questions, I would like to point out to all of you once again have access to the most transparent and accessible president in American history. There has never been a president who communicates with the American people and the American press corps as openly and authentically as the 45th and now 47th president of the United States.
I call BS
this
on
past
that.
week, President Trump has held multiple news conferences, gaggled on Air Force One multiple.
Just because you hold a news conference and you shout things at people doesn't mean it's transparent.
Times and sat down for a 2-part interview on Fox News, which aired last week. As Politico summed it up best.
Okay. You want to be transparent? Do that with Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow and literally anyone outside of Fox News. Let's do it. And don't approve the questions ahead of time.
Trump is everywhere again. And that's because President Trump has a great story to tell about the legendary American revival that is well underway. And in keeping with this revolutionary media approach that President Trump deployed during the campaign, the Trump White House will speak to all media outlets and personalities, not just the legacy media who are seated in this room.
I agree with this point. This is great. Talk to more content creators. Talk to more folks who do things on other platforms. Talk to more independent media. I am here for that. The thing is, if you only talk to folks like Hannity, Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, that's not actually being transparent or talking to anyone. So, sure.
Because according to recent polling from Gallup, Americans' trust in mass media has fallen to a record low.
I agree with that.
Millions of Americans, especially young people, have turned from traditional television outlets and newspapers to consume their news from podcasts, blogs, social media, and other independent outlets.
Yep. It's a good time to remind you that facts are friends. Facts are friends. Find great content creators who I've shouted a few of them out, who also go with facts. I'm all for this. I just have a feeling like it's like there's a punchline coming. And it's not going to be what I want it to be. But yes, this should have been done more. I will be the first to say that I think we are here because the legacy media didn't hold the two candidates on the same playing field. Harris had to be elevated. Harris had to be perfect. She had to be flawless in absolutely everything she did, and she was overmanaged because of it. And the legacy media wanted the clicks that Trump provides, so they just let him go. But broadening the media, allowing more people into the White House, that is a good thing.
It's essential to our team that we share President Trump's message everywhere and adapt this White House to the new media landscape in 2025. To do this, I'm excited to announce the following changes will be made to this historic James S. Brady briefing room, where Mr. Brady's legacy will endure. This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment So it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We're also opening up this briefing
Were they
room to
wrongly
new media
revoked, or
voices
were
who
they?
produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. And you can apply now on our new website, whitehouse.gov/new media. Starting today, this seat in the front of the room, which is usually occupied by the press secretary's staff, will be called the new media seat. My team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex.
So guys, think I should apply? Think I should apply to go down and ask some questions? I don't know. I might be too snarky. I probably am. And I have a life and a dog. But we'll see.
So in light of these announcements, our first questions for today's briefing will go to these new media members whose outlets, despite being some of the most viewed news websites in the country, have not been given seats in this room. And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office from President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy. A statement from the President of the United States to start this briefing with some news. And with that, I will turn it over to questions. And we will begin with our new media members, Mike Allen from Axios, Matt Boyle from Breitbart. Mike, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you very much.
Hey,
Caroline, does the
Breitbart,
president see anything fishy about DeepSeek, either its origins or its cost? And could China's ability to make these models quicker, cheaper, affect our thinking about expanding generation data centers, chip manufacturing?
Sure. The president was asked about DeepSeek last night on Air Force One when he gaggled for, I think, the third or fourth time throughout the weekend with members of the traveling press corps. The president said that he believes that this is a wake-up call to the American AI industry. The last administration sat on their hands and allowed China to rapidly develop this AI program. And so President Trump believes in restoring American AI dominance. And that's why he took very strong executive action this past week to sign executive orders to roll back some of the onerous regulations on the AI industry. And President Trump has also proudly appointed the
Okay, again, innovation is great. You don't get that when you only have 5 people running all of it. You just don't.
First AI and crypto czar at this White House, David Sachs, whom I spoke with yesterday, very knowledgeable on this subject, and his team is here working every single day to ensure American AI dominance. As for the national security implications, I spoke with NSC this morning. They are looking into what those may be, and when I have an update, I will share it with you, Mike.
Caroline, you say restore U.S. dominance. Is there a fear that the U.S. either is falling or has fallen behind? And how would the president make sure the U.S. stays ahead?
No, the president is confident that we will restore American dominance in AI.
Yeah, so Caroline, first off, thank you to you and President Trump for actually giving voices to new media outlets that represent millions and millions of Americans.
Oh my heavens. Again, I am all for this, and I don't even care if it's biased on a particular level, is if I know what the bias is, but facts are friends. Breitbart isn't known for being based in fact. Rhetoric, yes. Opinion, absolutely. Fact, no. Oh, okay, we're never going to get through
The thing I would add, I've got a 2-part question for you. The first is just, can you expand upon what steps the White House is going to take to bring more voices, not less, which is what our founder, Andrew Breitbart, believed in, into this room where they rightfully belong.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as I said in my opening statement, Matt, it is a priority of this White House to honor the First Amendment. And it is a fact that Americans are consuming their news media from various different platforms, especially young people.
Yep.
And as the youngest press secretary in history, thanks to President Trump,
She's
I
calling
take
me
great
young and I'm
pride in
old enough
opening
to
up
be your
this
mom.
room to new media voices to share the president's message with as many Americans as possible. In doing so, number one, we will ensure that outlets like yours, Axios and Breitbart, which are widely respected and viewed outlets, have an actual seat in this room every day. We also, again, encourage anybody in this country, whether you are a TikTok content creator, a blogger, a podcaster, if you are producing legitimate news content, no matter the medium, you will be allowed to apply for press credentials to this White House. And as I said earlier, our new media website is whitehouse.gov/new media. And so we encourage people to apply. Again, as long as you are creating news-related content of the day and you're a legitimate independent journalist, you're welcome to cover this White House.
And secondly, Caroline, you said
Except
you
I'm not a
laid out
journalist.
several of the actions
I'm a
that President Trump has taken. That obviously, it's a stark contrast to the previous administration of breakneck speed from President Trump. Can we expect that pace to continue as the first 100 days moves along here and beyond that?
Absolutely. There's no doubt President Trump has always been the hardest working man in politics. I think that's been proven.
No. By all accounts, no. Wrong. Fact checking. No.
Over the past week, this president has again signed more than 300 executive orders. He's taken his.
He didn't craft them, though. He signed them. And I'm willing to give a certain amount of credit where credit is due, but most of them have already hit lawsuits, and some of them have already been blocked by federal judges.
Historic action. I gaggled aboard Air Force One to mark the first one.
She really likes the word gaggle, too.
100 days of this administration, 4 p.m. last Friday, our first 100 hours rather. And this president did more in the first 100 hours than the previous president did in the first 100 days. So President Trump, I think you can all expect for him to continue to work at this breakneck speed. So I hope you're all ready to work very hard. I know that we are. Zeke Miller.
Thanks, Caroline. A question that we've asked your predecessors of both parties in this job. When you're up here in this briefing room speaking to the American public, do you view yourself and your role as speaking on, advocating on behalf of the president or providing the unvarnished truth that is, not to lie, not to obfuscate to the American people?
I commit to telling the truth from this podium every single day. I commit to speaking on behalf of the President of the United States. That is my job. And I will say it's very easy to speak truth from this podium when you have a president who is implementing policies that are wildly popular with the American people.
No.
And that's exactly what this administration.
Okay, again, fact check. Most of these aren't popular. It's why we didn't bring them up until in office. Most of these are not popular with the American people.
And the wrongs of the past 4 years, many of the lies that have been told to your faces in this very briefing room. I will not do that. But since you brought up truth, Zeke, I would like to point out, while I vowed to provide the truth from this podium, we ask that all of you in this room hold yourselves to that same standard. We know for a fact there have been lies that have been pushed by many legacy media outlets in this country about this president, about his family, and we will not accept that. We will call you out when we feel that your reporting is wrong or there is misinformation about this White House. So yes, I will hold myself to the truth, and I expect everyone in this room to do the same.
And Caroline, just on a substantive question, yesterday, the White House Office of Management and Budget directed across the board freeze, with some exceptions for individual assistance, we understand, to federal grants. It's caused a lot of confusion around the country among Head Start providers, among providers services to homeless veterans, Medicaid providers, states saying they're having trouble accessing the portal. Could you help us clear up some of the confusion, give some certainty to folks? And also, is that uncertainty, how does that uncertainty service the president's voters?
Well, I think there's only uncertainty in this room amongst the media. There's no uncertainty in this building. So let me provide the certainty and the clarity that all of you need. This is not a blanket pause on federal assistance and grant programs from the Trump administration.
But that's
Individual
what she said.
assistance, that includes, I'm not naming everything that's included, but just to give you a few examples, Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, food stamps, welfare benefits, assistance that is going directly to individuals will not be impacted by this pause. And I want to make that very clear to any Americans.
I'm recording this after a certain amount of time that this freeze has gone in. Guess what? Portals are down. There's a hiccup in all of this.
Who are watching at home who may be a little bit confused about some of the media reporting. This administration, if you are receiving individual assistance from the federal government, you will still continue to receive that. However, it is the responsibility of this president and this administration to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. That is something that President Trump campaigned on. That's
okay. Good stewards of taxpayer dollars is actually doing things for the country, not for your top 10 folks. That there has to be a line.
why he has launched DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, who is
Run by
working
a billionaire.
alongside
It was
OMB.
going to be
And
run
that's
by
why
two.
OMB sent out this memo last night, because the president signed an executive order directing OMB to do just this. And the reason for this is to ensure that every penny that is going out the door is not conflicting with the executive orders and actions that this president has taken. So,
Ma'am, you are very defensive over a very legitimate question. And when I said most of these policies are not in fact popular with the American public, this is what I am talking about.
So what does this pause mean? It means no more funding for illegal DEI programs. It means
DEI programs are not illegal. She can say it 4,000 times. It doesn't make it true.
no more funding for the Green New scam that has
Oh, for heaven's sakes, ma'am, you are a professional. This is so childish. I have a bumper for Snark Tank, and I'm not using it because I don't have enough for this. Green. Really? You are a grown woman in a very important position, and you are out there truly saying Green New scam. I know that's what she was given, but I'm pretty sure she believes it.
cost American taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. It means no more funding for transgenderism and wokeness across.
I would like her to define what she thinks wokeness is. And I was unaware that we had funding for folks who are trans. Most of the ones that I've encountered are unaware that there's funding for them too. Does it go for their therapy? I have questions.
Across our federal bureaucracy and agencies, no more funding for Green New Deal social engineering policies. Again, people who are receiving individual assistance, you will continue to receive that. And President Trump is looking out for you by issuing this pause because he is being good steward of your taxpayer dollars.
He hasn't been a good steward of dollars just in general, objectively, since he got put in charge of dollars.
Caroline, sure. How long is this pause going to last, and how is the Trump administration recommending that organizations that rely on federal funding make payroll, pay their rent in the meantime?
It is a temporary pause, and the Office of Management and Budget is reviewing the federal funding that has been going out the door. Again, not for individual assistance, but for all of these other programs that I mentioned. I also spoke with the incoming director of OMB this morning, and he told me to tell all of you that the line to his office is open for other federal government agencies across the board. And if they feel that programs are necessary and in line with the president's agenda, then the Office of Management and Budget will review those policies. I think this is a very responsible measure.
I have questions as to what it means to be in line with the president's agenda. Like, I have, considering the amount of loyalty being demanded in weird ways.
Measure. Again, the past 4 years, we've seen the Biden administration spend money like drunken sailors. It's a big reason we've had an inflation crisis in this country. And
Economists, I don't know, everywhere would like to disagree with you. That's not okay.
it's incumbent upon this administration to make sure, again, that every penny is being accounted for honestly.
Ooh, okay. If every penny is being accounted for honestly, I would like to know what the president is doing with his paycheck and why he made the first visit to the first country that offered to, invest in his bit. Like, I have questions about the walls that are supposed to be up between the president's business and international dealings.
I oppose this pause with so little notice. Why not give organizations more time to plan for the fact that they're about to lose, in some cases, really crucial federal funding, at least for a period of time.
There was notice. It was the executive order that the president signed. There's also a freeze on hiring, as you know.
Ma'am, that notice at best was 1 week. That's not notice.
A regulatory freeze, and there's also a freeze on foreign aid. And this is, again, incredibly important to ensure that this administration is taking into consideration how hard the American people are working. And their tax dollars actually matter to this administration.
So all your rich folks are going to pay more in taxes to make sure that so we don't have to have a freeze?
Just during this pause, DOGE and OMB have actually found that there was $37 million that was about to go out the door to the World Health Organization, which is an organization, as you all know, that President Trump, with the swipe of his pen in that executive order, is no longer wants the United States to be a part of. So that one.
Okay, hang on. Soapbox. Despite problems that the World Health Organization might have, I'm going to hop up on my soapbox here for a moment and say, okay, $37 million to that. You know what? Your Doge dude could pay that out of his pocket and never miss it at all. So that. Secondly, we've already had one pandemic. We might have another one right around the corner. Having the world, despite all of their problems, communication with health organizations worldwide is not a bad thing, since we've already had one global pandemic and it doesn't look like all of the scientists are like, yep, and the next one is coming. So when that's going to be, I don't know. But pulling out of the World Health Organization is a bigger problem, especially when it's combined with also, keeping the CDC from communicating anything to the American people. Okay. Off my soapbox.
Be in line with the president's agenda. DOGE and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money. So that's what this pause is focused on, being good.
I want to see what they found. I want to see the
Meals on
details
Wheels
of that.
or Head Start or disaster aid.
Again, it does not affect individual assistance that's going to Americans.
To follow up on Nancy, do you think there will be a list of who is affected and how much money is affected? How will these contractors and organizations know if they are actually having their funding frozen? And then secondly, if you're willing, can you just clarify, is the end goal of this to essentially challenge Congress or to prove that the president can withhold federal funding? In other words, is this an attempt to pick a fight to prove that he can do this?
No, absolutely not. As it says right here in the memo, which I have, and I'd encourage all of you to read it, it says the American people elected President Trump to be the president of the United States and gave him a mandate to increase the impact of every federal dollar. This memo requires federal agencies to identify and review all federal financial assistance programs and supporting activities consistent with the president's policies and requirements. The American people gave President Trump an overwhelming mandate.
The president's policies and requirements, he's not a king. This is not how our government works. You don't get to withhold this. I mean, clearly he can and he does, and that's what we're doing. But it's not, we have three branches of power, checks and balances. Well, we used to. Now we sort of have checks sometimes, but really, it's not a dictatorship yet. And it's not a kingship. It's not. I would love it if every single one of these people would, just for the record, take one of our citizenship tests. Because I feel like if you're going to be in a position of this magnitude in this country, you should be able to pass the same test that we ask anybody being a naturalized citizen to take. Yeah, and if you fail, yeet. That's extreme, I know, but still.
On November 5th, and he's just trying to ensure that the tax money going out the door in this very bankrupt city actually aligns with the will and the priorities of the American people.
So will there be a landslide?
Yes. Welcome. You look great. You're doing a great job. You talked about transparency, and some of us in this room know how just transparent President Trump has been the last 5 or 6 years. I think you'll do the same.
No.
My question is, do you think this latest incident with the president of Colombia is indicative of the global, powerful respect they have for President Trump moving forward, not only to engage in economic diplomacy with these countries, but also world peace?
Absolutely. I'll echo the answer that the president gave on Air Force One last night when he was asked a very similar question by one of your colleagues in the media. This signifies peace through strength is back. And this president will not tolerate illegal immigration into America's interior. And he expects every nation on this planet, again, to cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens who illegally entered into our country and broke America's laws.
Ma'am, I'm a wager that your descendants, much like mine, don't necessarily fall into the, kindness, following all the rules, immigration thing. So I think we just need to be a little more aware of our words when we speak, and a lot more aware of our history.
Won't be tolerated. And as you saw, the Colombian government quickly folded and agreed to all of President Trump's demands.
That's not what happened.
Flights are underway once again.
Two questions on deportations, if I may. President Trump had said on the campaign trail that he would deport pro-Hamas students who are here on visas. And on his first day in office, he signed an executive order that said, quote, the U.S. must ensure that admitted aliens and aliens otherwise already present in the U.S. do not bear hostile attitudes towards the citizens, culture, government, institutions, or founding principles. So should we take this executive order as Trump saying he would be open to deporting those students who are here on visas, but hold pro-Hamas sympathies?
The president is open to deporting individuals who have broken our nation's immigration laws. So if they are here illegally, then certainly he is open to deporting them. And that's what this administration is hard at work at doing. We receive data from DHS and from ICE every single day. From what we hear on the ground, ICE agents are feeling incredibly empowered right now because they actually have a leader in this building who is supporting them in doing their jobs that they were hired to do, which is to detain, arrest, and deport illegal criminals who have invaded our nation's borders over the past 4 years. That's what the president is committed to seeing.
Peter.
Just following up on the question on immigration first, President Trump during the course of the campaign in 2024 said the following about illegal immigration. He said, they're going back home where they belong, and we start with the criminals. There are many, many criminals. NBC News has learned that ICE arrested 1,179 undocumented immigrants on Sunday, but nearly half of them, 566 of the migrants, appear to have no prior criminal record besides entering the country illegally. Is the president still focused exclusively, which is a civil crime, it's not criminal.
Federal crime.
So I'm asking though, he said he was going to focus on those violent offenders first. So is violent offenders no longer the predicate for these people to be deported?
The president has said countless times on the campaign trail, I've been with him at the rallies, I know you've been there covering them too, Peter, that he is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national who illegally enters the United States of America, you are by definition a criminal. And so therefore you are subject to deportation.
I apologize.
That is I'm going to be charitable and assume she doesn't actually know how this works because it can be complicated and I don't even know how all of it works. But the attitude is killing
Just for
me.
interrupting. So to be clear, it's not violent criminals do not receive precedence in terms of the deportations taking
The
place.
president has also said two things can be true at the same time. We want to deport illegal criminals, illegal immigrants from this country, but the president has said that, of course, the illegal criminal drug dealers, the rapists, the murderers, the individuals who have committed heinous acts on the interior of our country and who have terrorized law-abiding American citizens, absolutely, those should be the priority of ICE.
Can we take a roundup of 50 loyalists and 50 of the folks he thinks should be deported and just see what their actual alleged crimes are, whether or not they've been through the court system, because
But that doesn't mean that the other
the
illegal criminals who
president
enter
is
our
a
nation's
criminal.
borders are off the table.
Understood. Then let me ask you a separate question
Having
about
been
the
through the
confusion
court
that still
system.
exists across the country right now as it relates to the freeze or pause as it's described. President Trump, of course, ran one of the key policy items was that he was going to lower prices, lower the cost of everything from groceries, as he often said. But in many of the cases, it would seem that some of these moves could raise prices for real Americans on everything from
Correct.
low-income heating, that program, childcare programs. Will nothing that the president's doing here in terms of the freeze in these programs raise prices on ordinary Americans?
What particular actions are you referring to that
I'm
would?
referring to LHEAP right now. That's the low-income heating program, for example. We can talk about, there's no clarity, so I could refer to a lot of them. We don't know what they are specifically. Can you tell us that LHEAP, that LIHEAP is not one of those affected?
So you're asking a hypothetical based on programs that you can't even identify.
I just identified.
What I can tell you.
Oh my God,
Since
ma'am,
you guys
the
haven't identified,
snark.
let's do it together just for Americans at home. Medicaid, is that affected?
I gave you a list of examples: Social Security, Medicare, wealth.
Ma'am, you got snarky with him and said, oh, you can't even ask the questions. And then he said, okay, let's go through the list. And he asked you a yes or no, and you can't answer the question. That is a problem for me.
Fair benefits,
Medicaid
food
right.
stamps that will not be impacted by this federal pause. I can get you the full list after this briefing from the Office of Management and Budget, but I do want to address the cost cutting. Because that's certainly very important, and cutting the cost of living in this country. President Trump has taken historic action over the past week to do that. He actually signed a memorandum to deliver emergency price relief for American families, which took a number of actions. I can walk you through those. He also repealed many onerous Biden administration regulations. We know over the past 4 years, American households has been essentially taxed $55,000 in regulations from the previous administration. President Trump, with the swipe of his pen, rescinded those, which will ultimately put more money.
Again, economists would like to differ with you on that, given that wages increased higher than inflation for the first time since we tried trickle-down economics. But
back
sure.
in the pockets of the American people. So deregulation is a big deal. And then when it comes to energy, I mean, the president signed an executive order to declare a national energy emergency here at home, which is going to make America energy dominant. We know that energy is one of the #1 drivers of inflation. And so that's why the president wants to increase our energy supply to bring down costs for Americans. The Trump energy boom is incoming.
Didn't we do better the last 4 years with energy and with expanding options? This feels very...
And Americans can expect that.
Please share that out. Thank you.
Caroline, I think some of the confusion, I think, may be here with this pause on federal funding. You've made it clear you're not stopping funds that go directly to individuals, but there certainly are lots of organizations that receive funding and then may pass along a benefit. Meals on Wheels, for one. They provide meals for over 2.2 million seniors. What is the president's message to Americans out there, many of whom supported him and voted for him, who are concerned that this is going to impact them directly, even if, as you said, the funding isn't coming directly to their wallet?
I have now been asked and answered this question 4 times.
No, you have not
Individuals
answered
at
the
home
question. That's
who
why you keep
receive
getting asked
direct
it.
assistance from the federal government, you will not be impacted by this federal freeze. In fact, OMB just sent out a memo to Capitol Hill with Q&A to clarify some of the questions and the answers that all of you are asking me right now.
So
again,
answer the
direct
question.
assistance will not be impacted. I've been asked and answered about this OMB memo. There's many other topics of the day. Jackie
But
Heimer.
indirect assistance,
Thank you,
Caroline, if it's
Caroline.
going to another organization and then trickling down.
Direct assistance that is in the hands of the American people will not be impacted. Again, as I said to Peter, we will continue to provide that list as it.
So I'm going to translate because she can't seem to say the word yes. Yes, if it's Meals on Wheels, if it is one of those, it will be effective, even though it is individual, even though individuals receive that benefit. From everything she is saying, I'm going to wager that yes, those places will be impacted because she's not answering the question. She's not saying, no, here's how it's going to work with these particular programs. She's not naming any of that. So, yeah.
Comes to fruition, but OMB right now is focused on analyzing the federal government's spending, which is exactly what the American people elected President Trump to do.
And one question on
Thank you,
immigration,
Caroline.
Caroline, on immigration.
They
Of
like
the 3,500
Okay.
arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office, can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
Okay. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. This is an othering that is typically when we see this, it ends up in history books and not good history. So yeah, this is a big problem. Also, I personally have a problem with being so hung up on calling them criminals when it's the president who is a convicted criminal of a nonviolent crime, mostly because his violent crimes never made it to court because statute of limitations. I have the hypocrisy hurts. The hypocrisy of this all hurts me. I will let her continue her debate. She is very defensive. And I get it. Being a press secretary is an unenviable job. She is handling herself very well, considering. It's also a lot of ugh.
Maybe going the worst to worst, they all have a criminal record.
And welcome to the briefing
If they
room.
broke our nation's laws, yes, they are criminal. Yes.
Thank you. On stripping
Okay.
security details
So
for figures
most
like
of
John
your
Bolton,
cabinet is
Pompeo, Brian Hook, Senator Tom Cotton said that he's seen the intelligence and the threat from Iran is real for anyone who played a role in the Soleimani strike. He voiced concern it wouldn't just impact those individuals, but potentially their family, innocent bystanders, friends, anyone who's near them when they're out in public. Is the president open to reconsidering his decision?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday, and he was firm in his decision despite some of the comments that you had referenced. And he's made it very clear that he does not believe American taxpayers should fund security details for individuals who have served in the government for the rest of their lives. And there's nothing stopping these individuals that you mentioned from obtaining private security. That's where the president stands on it. I have no updates on that.
Is there any concern that this decision might jeopardize the administration's ability to hire the best advisors for these kinds of positions in the future?
No, in fact, I've talked to the presidential personnel office who has told me directly that there is such an influx of resumes for this administration that it's incredibly overwhelming. There is no lack of talent for the Trump administration.
Reagan, would he take any responsibility if anything happened to these people? Would he feel at all that his decision was a factor in that?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday. I defer you to his
Thanks,
comments.
Caroline.
Reagan, since you're in the back row, I hear you, the back row hasn't gotten much attention in the last 4 years, so I'm happy to answer your question.
I can project. Does the president intend to permanently cut off funding to NGOs that are bringing illegal foreign nationals to the country, such as Catholic charities?
I am actually quite certain that the president signed an executive order that did just that, and I can point you to that.
One more, Caroline. President Trump issued an executive order on increased vetting for refugees and visa applications. Part of that order was considering an outright ban for countries that have deficient screening processes. Has the president considered yet which countries might fall into this category? Are countries like Afghanistan or Syria under consideration for a full ban?
Yeah, so the president signed an executive order to streamline the vetting for visa applicants and for illegal immigrants in this country who are coming, of course, from other nations. It also directed the Secretary of State to review the process and make sure that other countries around the world are being completely transparent with our nation and the individuals that they are sending here. And so the Secretary of State has been directed to report back to the president. I haven't seen that report yet. We've only been here for a few days.
One on the freeze in federal funding. Who advised the president on the legality of telling government agencies that they don't have to spend money that was already appropriated by Congress?
Well, as the OMB memo states, this is certainly within the confines of the law. So White House counsel's office believes that this is within the president's power to do it, and therefore he's doing it.
Okay, so they disagree with lawmakers who say that they don't have.
No. The president believes a lot of things that are not true. Just because he believes it is true does not, in fact, make it reality. That's not how facts work, ma'am. No, there's supposed to be checks and balances.
The power to freeze this funding.
Again, I would point you to the language in the memo that clearly states this is within the law.
And all that happened on Friday night. The administration fired several inspectors general without giving Congress the 30-day legally required notification that they were being fired. I think only 2 were left at DHS and the DOJ. And then yesterday we saw several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So it is the belief of this White House and the White House counsel's office that the president was within his executive authority to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has
that he's checks and balances. You have to actually get congressional approval to do some of this. I don't care that he believes he can. He believes a lot of things. But that is not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
Power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to.
No.
There's also a case that went before the Supreme Court in 2020, Scala Law LLC versus the Customs, Bureau Protection. I would advise you to look at that case, and that's the legality that this White House was resting
So
on.
you're confident that if they bring lawsuits against you, the prosecutors who were fired, that they will succeed?
We will win in court.
And
yes.
did he personally direct this, given they worked on the classified documents investigation and the election interference investigation?
This was a memo that went out by the Presidential Personnel Office, and the president is the leader of this White House. So yes. Yes.
Caroline.
Caroline? Thank you. Congrats on your first day behind the podium.
Thank you.
President Trump ended funding for UNRWA and also designated the Houthis a foreign terrorist organization.
That's right.
Both were decisions that the previous administration had reversed. So here's my question. Will there be an investigation into who gave the previous administration this terrible advice?
Well, that's a very good point. I haven't heard discussions about such an investigation, but it wouldn't be a bad idea considering that the Houthis certainly are terrorists.
You don't just get to investigate people because you have different ideas from them. That's not how politics is supposed to work. Not in a democracy.
Terrorists. They have launched attacks on U.S. naval ships across this world. And so I think it was a very wise move by this administration to redesignate them as a terrorist group, because they are. And I think it was a foolish decision by the previous administration to do so. As for an investigation, I'm not sure about that, but it's not a bad idea.
Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Can you give us an update on the president's plan for his tariff agenda? He spoke a lot about this yesterday, and there's a couple of dates coming up that he's spoken to. Number one, February 1st, he's alluded to both the potential for tariffs for Canada and Mexico, but also China to take effect on those days. What's he thinking about that?
Yeah.
Should those countries expect that?
Again, he was asked and answered this question this past weekend when he took a lot of questions from the press, and he said that the February 1st date for Canada and Mexico still holds.
What about the China 10% tariff that he also mused about last Tuesday going into effect on the same day?
Yeah, the president has said that he is very much still considering that for February 1st.
Yesterday, he talked also about sectoral tariffs on, for instance, pharmaceuticals as well as semiconductor computer chips. He talked about steel, aluminum, and copper. What's the timeline on those? Is that a similar sort of coming days thing?
Yeah, so when the president talked about that in his speech yesterday, that actually wasn't a new announcement. That was within a presidential memorandum that he signed in one of the first days here in the White House on his America First trade agenda. So there's more details on those tariffs in there. As far as a date, I don't have a specific date to read out to you, but the president is committed to implementing tariffs effectively, just like he did in his first term.
Finally, he also was asked on the plane when he gaggled about the potential for a universal tariff. He was asked maybe about 2.5%. There was a report about that. He said he wanted much bigger than that. Should we understand that these tariffs would add up? You know, in other words, you might have country-specific tariffs like Canada, Mexico, China. You might have sectoral tariffs like on pharmaceuticals, as well as a potential universal tariff on top of that. Do these stack on one or the other, or would one take precedence over another?
All I can point you to is what the president has said on this front. The February 1st date for Canada and Mexico, also the China tariff that he has discussed. He rejected the 2.5% tariff. He said that was a little bit too low. He wants it to be higher. I'll leave it to him to make any decisions on that front.
What the Mexicans and Canadians have done so far, do you have any comment on whether that has met the bar, what he wants to see on fentanyl? Thank you.
I won't get ahead of the president again on advocating to foreign nations on what they should or shouldn't do to get away from these tariffs. The president has made it very clear, again, that he expects every nation around this world to cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens. And the president has also put out specific statements in terms of Canada and Mexico when it comes to what he expects in terms of border security. We have seen a historic level of cooperation from Mexico. But again, as far as I'm still tracking, and that was last night talking to the president directly, February 1st is still on the books. Phil.
Thank you, Caroline. Quick programming note and then a question on taxes. Well, in terms of programming, should we expect to see you here every day? How frequently will these press briefings be?
It is a good question, April. So look, the president, as you know, is incredibly accessible. First day here, he wanted all of you in the Oval Office. You got a 60-minute press conference with the leader of the free.
Trump's version of a press conference where he just gathers people and then shouts stuff at them, but nobody actually gets to ask questions, follow up, that kind of thing. It's not that okay.
World while he was simultaneously signing executive orders. I may add that's pretty impressive. I don't think the previous office holder would.
He couldn't. I watched some of that. I watched some of that with you guys. He couldn't talk and write at the same time. He couldn't
be able to pull such a thing off. So look, the president is the best spokesperson that this White House has. And I can assure you that you will be hearing from both him and me as much as possible.
And then a question about tax cuts. The president has promised to extend the tax cuts from the previous term. I'm curious, does the president support corresponding spending cuts as some Republicans have called for in Congress? And will the new Treasury Secretary be leading those negotiations with the Hill as Mnuchin did during the first administration?
The president is committed to both tax cuts and spending cuts. And he has a great team negotiating on his behalf, but there's no better negotiator than Donald Trump. And I'm sure he'll be involved in this reconciliation process as the
president. Like financially, not.
Announcement that you made last night on the Iron Dome, it said the president had directed that the United States will build this Iron Dome.
Yeah.
When you read into the executive order, it seemed short of that. It asked for a series of studies and reports back. Can you tell us whether the president has directed this? And if he is as concerned on this issue, why the suspensions that we saw listed by OMB included so many different nuclear programs, non-proliferation programs, programs to blend down nuclear weapons, and so forth?
First of all, when it comes to the Iron Dome, the executive order directed the implementation of an Iron Dome. It also, as you said, kind of directed research and studies to see if or how the United States can go about doing this, particularly the Department of Defense. When it comes to the other question that you asked about those specific programs, again, I would say this is not a ban. This is a temporary pause and a freeze to ensure that all of the money going out from Washington, D.C. is enough.
But if you want to do a thing that requires money from programs that you've paused funding toward, ma'am, the math isn't mathing.
Aligned with the president's agenda. And as the Office of Management and Budget has updates on what will be kickstarted once again, I will provide those to you.
Just to clarify for a sec what you were saying before on Medicaid. It wasn't clear to me whether you were saying that no Medicaid would be cut off. Obviously, a lot of this goes to states before it goes to individuals and so forth. So are you guaranteeing here that no individual now on Medicaid would see a cutoff because of the pause?
I'll check back on that and get back to you. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline.
Wait, you just spent so much time going, I've already told you nothing is going to be affected if it's an individual. And now let me check back on with you.
In the first week that the president was in office, signed an executive order as it relates to birthright citizenship, trying to eliminate that. Now, 22 state attorney generals have said that this is unconstitutional. A federal judge has just agreed with their argument. What's the administration's argument for doing away with birthright citizenship?
The folks that you mentioned have a right to have that legal opinion, but it is in disagreement with the legal opinion of this administration.
Ma'am, that's a lot of attorneys to agree. You know what you learn when you follow a bunch of attorneys on YouTube? If 5 of them all agree, you might want to pay attention to what they're agreeing on, because that's not a normal thing.
This administration believes that birthright citizenship is unconstitutional, and
But
that
it's
is why
in the
President Trump
14th
signed
Amendment.
that executive order. Illegal immigrants who come to this country and have a child are not subject to the laws of this jurisdiction. That's the opinion of this administration. We have already appealed.
You get the right to have your opinion. You do not have the right to be right.
The lawsuit that was filed against this administration, and we are prepared to fight this all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to, because President Trump believes.
Okay. They want this to go to the Supreme Court because they think the Supreme Court will overturn the 14th Amendment, which the last I checked in my civics classes, history books, and all of that, you can't do. You need Congress. You need the states to ratify that. We're talking constitutional amendment.
That this is a necessary step to secure our nation's borders and protect our homeland.
Ma'am, 10-1, your original homeland for you and your ancestors ain't here.
See, Caroline, on foreign policy, if I may, the president's commitment to the NATO Defense Alliance, is it as strong as the prior administration? Is it the same as when he served as president in his first term in office?
As long as NATO pays their fair share, and President Trump has called on NATO allies to increase their defense spending to 5%. You actually saw the head of NATO at Davos last week on Bloomberg television saying that President Trump is right. And if Europe wants to keep itself safe, they should increase their defense spending. I would just add that there was no greater ally to our European allies than President Trump in his first term. The world for all nations in Europe and of course here at home was much safer because of President.
No. That's first of all very European specific, and second of all, I don't think this holds up to fact checking.
Trump's peace through strength diplomatic approach. Monica.
Thank you.
Peace through strength. That's not a thing. It's a fun thing to say. It means basically nothing, and the subtext is, you will do what we say because we will make you so afraid that you will do what we say.
Thank you, Caroline, and it's great to finally be called on as well in the briefing room. I appreciate that. Of course, we know President Trump just got back from North Carolina and California meeting with victims of natural disasters. There's the 2-year anniversary of the East Palestine, Ohio toxic train derailment. Does the president have any plans to go visit the victims of that toxic spill, or just visit in general?
No plans that I can read out for you here. If that changes, I will certainly keep you posted. What I can tell you is that President Trump still talks about his visit to East Palestine, Ohio. That was one of the turning points, I would say, in the previous election campaign, where Americans were reminded that President Trump is a man of the people, and he,
No,
as a
he's not.
candidate,
He's never
visited
been a
that
man of the
town
people,
that was just
ever.
derailed by the train derailment, no pun intended, and he offered support and hope, just like I saw the president do this past week. It was a purposeful decision by this president on his first domestic trip to go to North Carolina and to California to visit with Americans who were impacted by.
If he didn't go to California, he knew he was going to have a lot of constituents to answer to.
By Hurricane Helene and also by the deadly fires, a red state and a blue state, both of which feel forgotten by the previous administration and the federal government. That is
not what I am seeing coming out of anyone, anywhere. And with North Carolina, let us not forget that there was a massive misinformation campaign about FEMA and assistance, and it caused a whole lot of problems. With California, it's still on fire, so let's get the fires out before, we bring politics into this. Can we just take care of everybody?
Now, that is now ended under President Trump. He will continue to put Americans first, whether they're in East Palestine, in Pacific Palisades, or in North Carolina.
Thank you, Caroline. On California, could you please clarify what the military did with the water last night as referenced in the president's Truth Social post?
The water has been turned back on in California.
It was
and this
never
comes just days after President Trump visited Pacific Palisades, and as you all saw, applied tremendous pressure on state and local officials in Pacific Palisades, including Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, to turn on the water and to direct that water.
I have serious issues with this because I have watched a lot of news on this, and when you are trying to operate out of a fire hydrant, when you've got all of the water going all of the places, it's not a matter of just turning the water back on. This is an oversimplification. This does no favors to the folks in California or to anybody else. It's frankly uncalled for and gross.
To places in the South and in the middle of the state that have been incredibly dry, which has led to the rapid expansion of these fires.
So could you clarify what the military's role was, where the water came from, and how it got there?
Again, the Army Corps of Engineers has been on the ground in California to respond to the devastation from these wildfires. And I would point out that just days after President Trump visited the devastation from these fires, the water was turned on. That is because of the pressure campaign he put on state and local officials there who clearly lack all common sense. And I will never.
Wow. That is a bold statement directed at a group of folks who live there, who have been fighting this, who have planned for this as needed. And I'm not saying that we aren't going to have to go through some problems with that, but that is a bold statement. And for me, this is where I lose it, because there's no empathy at all in any of this for folks who have lost their homes, for folks who have been displaced here. And this is absolutely gross.
Forget being at that roundtable with the president last week and hearing the frustration in the voices of Pacific Palisades residents who feel as though their government has just gone insane. Before President Trump showed up on the scene, Karen Bass was telling private property owners that they would have to wait 18 months to access their private property. So this administration, the president and his.
And for this, I also have questions. 18 months, is that because it is not safe for you to go there? I have questions about where this is coming from and what the actual details are.
Team that's on the ground in California, Rick Grinnell, who he has designated to oversee this great crisis, it will continue to put pressure on Karen Bass and state and local officials to allow residents to access their properties. This is a huge
I also
part
find
of it.
it very gross that she keeps naming this particular person. Like, it's not. This isn't a game of politics. This is an issue that has happened due to environmental problems, climate change, all those things. It's not, when somebody loses everything, politics go right out the window, or they should.
These residents want to take part in their own clearing out of their properties. They should be able to do that. It's the United States of America. What happened to our freedom? Clearly, it's gone in California, but not anymore under President Trump. April.
Caroline, welcome to the briefing room.
Lord,
Several questions. One on the pause. Will minority serving institutions, preferably colleges and universities, have those monies held back temporarily at this moment?
Again, I have not seen the entire list because this memo was just sent out. So I will provide you all with updates as we receive them, okay?
Secondly, secondly, when it comes to immigration, there is this southern border focus. What happens to those who've overstayed their visas? That is part of the broken immigration system. In 2023, there was a report by the Biden administration, the Homeland Security Department, it said overstays of visas were 3 times more than usual. Will there be a focus on the overstays for visas as well?
If an individual is overstaying their visa, they are therefore an illegal immigrant residing in this country, and they are subject to deportation.
And also, lastly, as we're dealing with anti-DEI, anti-woke efforts, we understand this administration is thinking about celebrating Black History Month. Have you got any word on that? Anything that you can offer to us?
As far as I know, this White House certainly still intends to celebrate, and we will continue to celebrate American history and the contributions that all Americans, regardless of race, religion, or creed, have made to our great country. And America is back. Christian Dayton.
That is a very Stephen Miller white. That is a choice.
Just real quick, you mentioned the inflation executive order the president signed, but egg prices have skyrocketed since President Trump took office. So what specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when
this White House ran on lowering egg prices almost instantly. It's a fair question.
Joe Biden was in the Oval Office or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure. Egg prices increased 65% in this country.
Ma'am, first of all, there's no need for that level of disrespect. There just isn't. Second of all, you need to tell the American people why egg prices are skyrocketing. Because it's not just because people feel like it, it's because we are seeing a very, very nasty round of bird flu that is taking out flocks of birds, thus meaning that we do not have eggs because there's no chickens to make the eggs because the bird flu, we should be aware of this bird flu. This particular bird flu has not yet jumped to humans, but I am cautious. I want to pay attention to it.
We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration in the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage.
Because of bird flu. Because of bird flu.
So I will leave you with this point. This is an example of why it's so incredibly important that the Senate moves swiftly to confirm all of President Trump's nominees, including his nominee for the United States Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, who is already speaking with Kevin Hassett, who's leading the economic team here at the White House on how we can address the egg shortage in this country. As for costs, I laid out the plethora of ways that President Trump has addressed saving costs for the American people over the past week. He looks forward to continuing and doing that in the days ahead.
Are Medicaid portals down in all 50 states?
Okay, I guess we're done. I guess we're done. I guess we're done. Oh, it's gonna be a very, 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 very long 4 years. That was a lot. I will say this. She, despite the fact that the snark, fine, okay. And you can be supportive of the president, you can answer the questions, and it doesn't need that undertone of disrespect. That's what bothers me on that one. I'll give her this though. She's the best out of all the ones he's had so far. So congratulations. Maybe you actually did go with merit this time. Although I will also point out that if she wants to really go back the way Trump wants to go back, she wouldn't have a job. Because again, check the brochure. But I will give her this. She's articulate. She's more articulate than the president most of the time. She's better than either of his two previous 3, 4. How many press secretaries did he have in the first term? I don't even remember. I blocked it out. But she's great. She's clearly a loyalist, and this is going to get interesting. But I will say that she handled herself very well. Yeah. So that was that. I would like to go back to fact checking in real time. I know it's not the time or the place with press briefing, but facts are friends. Facts are friends. So we've covered that. That was a lot. That was a whole lot to go over. Thank you all for sticking with me. I need to go watch Golden Girls or something. I need to be like a dog or Taylor Swift and just shake it off at this point, because that was a lot. That's all I can handle for the evening. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being here. If we want to look at some of these executive orders, if we want to take a history lesson deep dive into something, as usual, drop it in the comments. Find me on the socials. Let me know what we need to go over on Thursday. I've given up on trying to figure out what I'm going to go over immediately, because every time I think I know, 9 new executive orders drop and I start chasing my tail again. So let me know what you want my take on. Hopefully we can have a little more of a chat next time. This was a lot. Be well. Take care of you. Take care of your family. I had something else, and I don't remember what that was. Mostly, I just hope everybody is okay. Everybody's doing well. I am gonna run the outro, and I will see you on the next one. That was a lot. That was a lot. I'll see you on Thursday. Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Unfiltered Tea. Don't forget to hit that like button. If you have a story you want our unfiltered take on, go ahead and drop it in the comments, and we will see you next time.